In this video, we're going to look at how to take a couple video clips that we've created using the QuickTime Player and how to edit those in iMovie. So I kind of want to touch briefly on how iMovie works in terms of files. So if we double click on the hard drive in the upper right hand corner of the screen, if you don't see your hard drive, you can always go up to Finder, down to Preferences, and make sure that these are all checked so that way your hard drive is present. If we double click on the hard drive, we can look at, on the left hand side, look at the movies folder. So right now all we see is Camtasia 2 in there. So I'm going to go ahead and launch iMovie one time, and we'll go back and look at that folder. So iMovie was created. In iMovie right now we have this item called My First Project, and that's the only thing in iMovie. So we're going to quit iMovie, double clicking on the hard drive again, going to Movies. Now we see that there's a folder called iMovie Projects. We double click, we see that there's this My First Project, which we saw in iMovie. So that's the beginning of the file structure for iMovie. So we're going to go ahead and launch iMovie, and I'm going to show you two ways to bring video into iMovie. The first way is going to File, down to Import, and over to Movies. We're going to leave it at full, the original, clicking on OK, locating the files that we created, so I'm going to choose desktop, and I'm just going to grab presentation 1, and in the center here we have save to, and I'm going to have it saved to the untitled hard drive, which is the hard drive we see on the desktop. I want to create a new event. I want to make sure when I upload content to iMovie that I put it into a new event. So I'm going to call this presentation 1. I'm going to optimize video by keeping it original, and I want to go ahead and choose the copy files and click on import. The video will import into iMovie, and when it's done importing, I'm going to show you the file structure again, just to show you what was created. So it's going to generate thumbnails and go through a process, and then we're going to go ahead and close out of iMovie once it's completed. Okay, so in the bottom left under the event library, we see that we have now this import called presentation 1 with the video. So I'm going to go ahead and close out iMovie, going over to the hard drive, looking at movies again. Now we see iMovie Projects and iMovie Events. We look under Projects, we see that same project. Looking under iMovie Events, we now see that there's this folder called Presentation 1. Inside Presentation 1, we see that there is this presentation1.mov. So another way is if you have several videos that you want to import, instead of having to go through the file import option, you can also just come into the iMovie Events folder, create a new folder. I'm going to call this Presentation 2, and we're just going to drop that other video into that folder. I'm going to launch iMovie, and when iMovie launches, it's going to create the thumbnails and all the other stuff for that video. You notice it didn't take as long to import the video as it did to go to File, Import. If we go back to the hard drive, we can go to Movies, iMovie Events, Presentation 2, and we see the other two folders have been created for that video import. Now in iMovie, we have a project on the upper left. We have our import on the bottom left. We can see the video, and then we have our little area here that shows the video. All I'm going to do for the purpose of this, we're not going to go into major edits into iMovie. We're just going to do a couple basic edits. So I'm going to go to File, New Project. We're going to call this Presentation 1 to keep everything the same. We're going to keep the aspect ratio to widescreen since we did record the full screen. And we're going to keep the project theme just to no theme for now and click on Create. In the upper left, we now see the project Presentation 1. Down here we have the upload that we created. So the way that iMovie works is your original is never affected. So these are all the original videos. And what we want to do is we want to drag items that we want to keep up into the presentation area. So if we wanted to come along and trim out everything until the actual PowerPoint starts, what we can do is we can move the playhead by moving our mouse to a point where we figure everything starts. We can now click, hold, dragging to the right until we want the clip to end. So let's go to right about there. You have a yellow box surrounding this content. What we want to do is drag it up into our presentation. So we click, hold, drag, and move that up. We can now go to the beginning of this section in our project, click on the space bar to actually play the movie. We could come towards the end and be able to see what the end looks like. Maybe we want to polish it up just a little bit before we submit it. So this is again just a basic edit. We can go to the lower right, or I should say middle right area, and we can look at adding a title. We can look at transitions. So I'm actually going to look at the transitions icon. So that's the fourth icon over. And I'm just going to drag and drop a fade to black on the end. Maybe drag and drop a fade to black at the beginning. And maybe that's all we're going to do for this presentation, is just a simple fade to black at the beginning and the end. If you find that your overall audio for your video is too low, what we can do is we can hover over the top of the video. In the lower left-hand corner, we see a little drop down, and what that does is it gives us some options as well. So we can look at the video adjustments, audio adjustments. Typically, we find that people want to adjust audio. If you go to audio adjustments, under audio adjustments, you can bump the volume. So if you need to make it louder, or you can make it softer, and you can actually mess with some of the other settings here. I'm going to click the X to get out of that. And that is just a couple basics on how to get video into iMovie 1, and also just doing a very basic edit, which is just grabbing the portion of the video you want to keep and dragging and dropping up into the presentation area. Now, if I wanted to add something, so maybe there was a portion of this original video that I found, oh, I really didn't want that. I wanted to add a little bit, I wanted to get rid of maybe a section of it. There's two ways you can do that. You could click this one time, hit delete on your keyboard and get rid of it completely and start over. You could come in, highlight that section that you want to remove, again hitting delete on the keyboard, getting rid of it, splitting this into two pieces, or we get rid of everything. You can drag and drop more than one piece to the upper part under the presentation. So now I'm under the import area at the bottom. I can, in the event library, grab a section of video, click, hold, and drag into the project library. We see that a little border is left down in the event, noting that a part of that was brought to the top. When we click out of it, we still see that there's a little orange bar showing that that portion was taken. We can now grab other parts of the video and drop them in. I actually dropped two on accident. Again, grabbing other sections and drag and dropping them up. At this point, I'm, for whatever reason, adding two at a time. I can put a cross dissolve maybe in between each of these middle ones. Maybe then putting a fade to black again on the end and at the beginning. And there you would have your project and a fade to black at the end. When you're done with your project, you would go to Share, down to, at this point you could actually just say down to YouTube and export it directly to YouTube. You would put your account information here, and then you would be able to export it. I think I'm actually going to create one more video on, so that way this one doesn't end up too long, one more video actually on how to export this to YouTube, because there's a couple different ways that you can take your videos out of iMovie and bring them into YouTube.